Welcome to Zweig Group's Core Conversation. In this video, we talk with AEC professionals across various disciplines and experience levels about the issues them and their firms face. Try out marketing. Why is it such a chore for the AEC industry? The engineering curriculum itself, is it too stale and technical, thus driving people away from the industry before they even graduate from college? What's the difference between good leadership and bad? We all know what it is, but sometimes we're afraid to voice it. Diversity and inclusion. We know that's kind of all the rage these days, but the big question still remains. Do we need more of it? Young voices in the workplace. Are they being heard? If not, why not? And finally, how does your firm break out of the proposal cycle to differentiate itself from its competitors? We had a great time putting this video together, and we hope you enjoy it as much as we did. Don't forget to take the quiz for your PDH. Thanks a lot. Good evening, Lindsay Young. How are you doing?
I'm great, Richard. How are you?
Good. Thanks for coming down here to have a beer with us at Core Conversation and see where you've got 13 years of experience in AEC on the marketing side.
I do, and business development also. So.
Right, and so that many years on the marketing side in AEC is still kind of rare because the firms are still just now coming around to the fact that they have to market themselves if they want to differentiate themselves from their competitors and make money.
Right.
So that's one of the first questions that we're going to jump off is marketing. Why is it so difficult for AEC firms to do?
I think it's because they haven't had to do it in the past very much. All the work, people have just called them, gotten referrals. They haven't had to market. I mean, 40 years ago, it was actually illegal for AEs to market themselves. And so that generation is not used to having to market. But now it's obviously different. They're allowed to market. They can market. And so they're really having to get in and look at all the different things, especially I think on the digital side with website and social media and content marketing. I mean, that's totally new to our industry. So it's very difficult for them to get on board with that. But I think once they see the value in it, they understand.
So they haven't really figured it out yet?
No, I don't think we have as an industry. And I think there's an opportunity for marketers to help them do that. I really do.
Right, so there's some untapped potential in the talent pool. Like AEC could pull people in from other industries perhaps and say, fire the engines for us.
Most definitely. I think we can learn a lot from other industries as the AEC industry to learn how to better market ourselves and be open to those ideas.
Okay, great. Yeah, and I think that a lot of people that are watching this video are really going to want to hear that because they're going to go back to their firms and say, who do we have?
Right.
Who's running our social media? Who's doing our graphics?
Right.
And they might find out that they don't have the right people in there.
Right.
But that's for them to find out, right?
Right, exactly.
Okay, Lauren, and I see where you wanted to talk to us about team building.
Yes.
And so, in my opinion, team building is something that's not really specific to one industry. It's kind of a universal, putting the right people in the right places. But specifically, what do architecture and engineering firms need to learn, and what do they need to get better at when it comes to team building?
I think it's building those internal relationships and that company culture. Company culture is huge because that plays a part in your marketing and your business development, retaining or recruiting talent, and then also just getting clients and prospects in the door. So having the right people on the right seats on the bus is very important.
Right, and on the technical side, the architects and engineers are brilliant, but have they figured out team building yet? Or we know that some firms have, but
right.
What's your sense with your run-of-the-mill, firm out there, 8-man, 10-man firm,
right.
Have they figured it out yet?
No, most of them unfortunately haven't figured it out. They kind of work in silos. They don't realize that collaboration and team building are really important to the success and the growth of their firm. So if a firm of 8 or 10 or 12 is trying to grow, they've really got to take that team building into play because they're not going to grow if they don't have that collaboration and that, good employee morale. They're not going to grow as a firm.
And do you think that there's firms out there who have learned to live with poor morale? I mean, they know that there's problems, but there's still money coming into the door, so they don't worry about it.
I don't know that they even realize that they have bad employee morale, which is even more unfortunate.
Right,
they don't have the awareness that there's an issue, which is even sadder, I guess.
Right, so you see that a lot as a consultant.
I do see that, unfortunately. So, and that's part of the reason that I can help them, is that I can come in and say, okay, we've got some, employees that have some good suggestions on how to make the firm better and grow, and maybe set up some systems and some processes and help build that employee morale and get the internal communication better, which also leads to external communication better. So being able to see those and implement them, I think, are key.
Great, good. And so let's move on. Diversity and inclusion. Architecture and engineering has historically been known as, it's brilliant guys, but it's a bunch of guys.
It is.
And we know that that's kind of changing. It's kind of coming from the bottom up. But, if you're a 100-man firm out there or a 50-person firm, and you do want to get more women or people of color or people from different backgrounds to come and work for you, what do you think they need to do?
Well, I think they need to do a good job recruiting and retaining the employees that they have, but I also think they can talk about the different employee benefits that they have and that they offer. There's obviously more women now in architecture school. It's like 51%, 51% women, 49%
right.
men, which is great. Engineering's not quite that statistic, but I think as we educate people about our industry and how exciting and fun and rewarding it is to do that, especially for women, I think we'll see that increase. And so firms need to take advantage of that and build those relationships with some of those schools that are close to their offices to be able to recruit.
Well, it seems like more women are starting to go into architecture, but why is architecture seeming to outpace engineering, or is it?
I think it is, and it's probably just because there's more of a design aspect to it than engineering. But I think engineering
right.
is starting from having more women, be major in that or be interested in that. I think the industry is doing a decent job in terms of recruiting women into the industry, and so is construction too. I mean, there's a lot more women in construction today than there was even 10 years ago.
Right, and I think we're seeing a generational shift in all of this, and maybe that's what it took, is just a new awareness. But it seems like there's still some inertia out there that there's some folks who still might not want to make the change.
Right.
Are you seeing that?
Yes, I am. The resistance to change is always an issue. I shouldn't say always an issue, but with some people, because it's like, well, we've always done it that way. We're going to keep doing it that way. It's like, well, if you want to grow, or if you want to recruit different people, if you want to, you have to change in order to make things different, to make it better, to improve it for your clients, for your employees, for your prospects, for your potential employees. So you've got to be willing to change and evolve as a firm. And if you're not willing to do that, then you're really way behind the eight ball.
You're going kaplooey.
You are, unfortunately. So you have to be proactive in what you're doing with those things.
Great. And we're gonna do one more question, which is kind of up your alley. Is selling work. I mean, getting on the phone, going to someone's office and saying, hey, not only can we do this for you, we want to do this for you. It's called selling work.
Right.
And architects and engineers are notorious for not doing it.
Right.
That they think that it's either beneath them or that you have to be a shyster to do it.
Right.
So what's the built-in fear here with AEC on that?
You have to not call it selling. You're going and educating prospects and clients. So it's somewhat manipulation. As a marketing person, you don't say, hey, you're going to go sell. I'm going to take you with me and meet this prospect or this client. We're going to talk about everything we can do to help them. And so if you educate and help your clients or your prospects, that's really what you're doing. The selling is the easy part. So it's almost just changing the verbiage a little bit. But I also think that once they get used to it, or just starting with your existing or past clients and calling them and seeing how they're doing and getting some feedback from them, that's key. And I think as an industry, we don't do a good job of client retention or follow up after the fact. I mean, just because it's been 5 years since you talked to them, call them up. You never know. They may be getting ready to do a project, or maybe they have a colleague or a business partner down the street that they know of that is going going to do a project and you just happen to, call them because you stayed in touch with them. That's huge.
Right. So learning how to convert this into helping people and educating people as opposed to selling.
Right, exactly. So,
okay, well, Lauren, appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Hi, Evan. How are you?
Hey, Christy. I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. Okay, well, let's just start this off by telling me a little bit about yourself and what you do and who you work for.
Well, I work for a relatively small engineering company here in Fayetteville. They have about 15 people, 2 crews of surveyors. I'm a landscape architect. I'm the sole one there. They have several other engineers, and it's run by 2 brothers who, I guess for lack of a better word, acquired the company from their father. So
Okay.
We're such a small firm that I do not focus on installing plants and trees.
So tell me a little bit more about what you actually do, especially as the sole landscape architect in a company of engineers.
It ranges greatly. I deal with a lot of entitlement work, which is basically say, client comes to you and what can I do with this piece of it? Give them some ideas, you give them some conceptual designs, then you go through and you take it through what we call the city process, which is entitling the project to be able to construct. You get permits, you get design drawing to create them, you get the city to say okay, or the state, all of the above. Any jurisdiction that you need to get through to get the project moving forward, to get it built.
Very cool. So tell me a little bit, what's it like to work in a company that's owned by 2 brothers? What's the company culture like there?
It's really easy as a culture. Like they're very easygoing. They're talkative. We mess around and make fun of each other, which is easy and fun. But at the same time, we're a relatively no-nonsense group of people, as I'm sure most engineers, landscape architects are. They like to say, okay, well, what are we doing? Let's move forward. What are we going to do? 2 brothers, it's like having 2 bosses. You got to tell them both about everything that's going on, which is somewhat frustrating, but it's at the same time, I think we worked out a relative good equilibrium of what's going where and when you're doing what. That's nice. So in any corporation, I think it's nice if somebody has one person to go to for questions, comments, basically stuff like, I don't know.
Yeah, one person, one boss.
Yeah, not have
It's a good
2 bosses
system for an org chart. Yeah.
That's the one knock, but all the other stuff, it's very streamlined, easy.
Very cool. So talk to me just a little bit about, in general, workplace benefits and perks. What are some things that I think really appeal to somebody of your age in a job like you have?
Everybody's trying to look for themselves for the future. I mean, everyone wants to tell you that you're part of a team, you need to do this, we're a team, we should be a team. But I think a lot of people want to know, okay, if we're such a team, are you going to care about me in 2 years when things get bad?
Yeah, so job security is a big thing. What about other packages like
401k?
401k.
I mean, that's huge. 401ks are huge.
Talk to me a little bit.
Insurance, not bad insurance. It's not the cheapest insurance you can find. It's not good.
So do you have set work hours, or are your hours pretty flexible there?
I mean, you show up at 7:30, you can leave.
Yeah, so you guys have a relatively flexible
You
work
show up
time
at
there.
8:30, you probably need to work a little late.
So do you feel like you have a lot of pressure on you in that position, deadlines that you're supposed to meet, and also pressure from your bosses, or do you feel like you're really kind of in charge of your own destiny?
I'm in charge of my own destiny. I get a project, I do the project. You're basically sink or swim, it's your project. One of the biggest parts, I think clients, they like us.
Yeah.
We respond, we answer phone calls. I know a lot of companies don't. If somebody calls, you answer the phone.
busy.
We're not doing that until they go. Call back tomorrow. Or
Well,
I'm on the phone or whatever.
Switching gears a little bit, I know you have an 11-year-old son. Can you talk to us a little bit about why, why somebody should choose the industry, or how we should try to encourage and recruit young people into the industry?
How should you recruit young people into the industry? Engineering seems very sterile. I actually, my first degree choice was to be an engineer, and that was my first actual time. And it was the most boring thing I ever did. The first year of engineering school was biology, calculus, algebra.
So you think all the math is like really imposing?
I mean, I wouldn't say that the math is imposing, but I would just say that there's nothing in there that's very enticing.
Okay.
It's like, oh, well, I want to go do 10 hours of math.
So you think like more practical application in school programs would help?
Oh, absolutely, because I know a lot of the guys that came through that specific program that I left, basically used none of it.
Yeah.
All of it is basically done through programs. You know the system, you know how to do drainage, you enter the numbers in, you know the general concept. It spits you out numbers, it says it doesn't work. You put in different numbers, it says it doesn't work. I mean, you have to have a certain knowledge of how things go together and how the whole process goes together. And how the programs work, which is huge. But at the end of the day,
so you think it starts at the college level is like where the education part needs to change?
People want to go into engineering.
Yeah.
There's lots of kids in high school that want to go into engineering. There's lots of kids that do that. Now, I mean, I don't know if there's lots of diversity. That's a whole different conversation. But I do think there's lots of high school kids that go into engineering in college and then get like, I can't do this. I can't do all this. And they'd be great project managers. They'd be great project engineers. They'd be great at doing all these things. But to sit there and do math for 10 hours a day and learn pre-cal, not even pre-cal, it's like the really tough stuff.
Yeah.
Finite math and all that other crazy things that you get into.
So let's just say, to conclude, if somebody does make it all the way through college, has the degree, what do firms need to be doing to really attract those people to come work for them? So if you had your own engineering firm, what would you do?
You're going to attract me.
Yeah.
I want to be able to say I want a relatively flexible work environment.
Okay.
Hours.
Yeah.
I have a kid. He's got stuff to do. I have to take him places. If I leave at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, is that going to be a problem? Because that's going to happen. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be stared at like I'm a crazy person.
What else? I
mean, benefits like incentives to make money.
Yeah.
If you're pulling in clients and you're making big contracts, and people like you, and they keep coming back for you, specifically for you, like there should be some sort of bonus involved in that.
Awesome.
If you're doing, basically, that's a huge one. If clients like you and they want to come back and they come back for you, then I think there should be some incentive.
Awesome. Okay. Well, that'll be it.
Greg, tell me, how does it work being a design professional with his own business here locally? How's that worked out for you?
And I've been really blessed to have some really good clients. As landform designs, I do mainly custom residential for the most part.
It's a real niche, and it takes a lot of skill, I think, when you have a smaller site to really do all the things that people want to do when it's their home.
Well, it's on a different scale. Yeah, the commercial and the residential are just night and day.
I don't think it's taught in design school at all. We used to say that everybody should have a class where they get a 70 by 140 lot with a snout house, and you got to make it look good. Mm-hmm. You know, it's because they need a lot of help.
Oh yeah.
And there's nobody out there doing it.
what I get jazzed about though is just that they're going to be sitting there and enjoying it and experiencing it every day.
Sure.
That's something you don't get on the commercial side.
And you get to see it mature too.
Oh, yeah.
I think, and so it's sort of an evolution of your design. It takes a while to fully come to fruition. Of course, we have some local designers who don't understand that, and they overplant everything. And of course, 3 years later, it's like, holy cow, that looks like a mess.
I've gone through that phase as well, so that's part of the learning process. Yeah.
But that's interesting. So, tell me, what does it mean to be a young professional, you think, in this business today?
Well, it's funny. You were commenting earlier about what you thought my age was, and I don't. I still feel like a young professional, but it just kind of hit me the other day that I'm not.
You're a 20-year veteran.
I know. I've been, and so I had a colleague just, I approached him about maybe kind of partnering up for some design, and he was moving away, and he's like, well, I'm actually doing this thing where I'm going to be mentoring other professionals, and I was like, that sounds interesting. Tell me more. And so we're kind of starting up a little something to train people going out on their own in the residential landscape architecture industry. So it's not design training, it's the behind the scenes, the stuff that, the hard knocks that you learn, and trying to give them some of that early on so they can avoid some of the pain.
What do you think the greatest skills are that they lack? Based on their either getting out of school or even the jobs, maybe they've worked for some period of years in a firm. What do they lack?
I think a lot of it is we see process being like, when you're out solo practice, you don't feel like, oh, I've got to create a handbook so that we do it the same way every time, but you do. It's like so that you can have some consistency through your work. So that's one of the things I'm seeing.
Reinvent the wheel every time.
Exactly. Spend that energy on the design and reinvent that every time, and let the business process kind of work itself out behind the scenes, and we're kind of put some of that stuff on autopilot. That's kind of what I'm seeing.
I mean, I teach in the College of Business, and I've obviously been doing this for a long time, 38 years in the AE business, but it's interesting to see how poor the basic accounting knowledge is. Things like billing, and I think people are afraid to ask for money up front, bill quickly, ask to get paid.
When do you bring an invoice? When you bring the drawings.
That's the time to get paid, isn't it?
Exactly. Get them when they're happy.
But so many people don't seem to understand that.
Yeah.
That's good. You're trying to help out some of these people.
Well, it just kind of hit me that, I do have something to offer these younger guys, and so it's kind of exciting.
That's good. Yeah. And I think when you do that, you probably learn too. It forces you to sort of refine your tools and sort of thought process, and then that makes you better yourself.
Well, right now there's two of us working on curriculum.
Yeah.
How do I do it? How do you do it? And then we have to kind of sort out, well, how are we going to teach it?
These two options.
So it's an interesting experience for real.
That's cool. So let's talk a little bit about marketing. Why do you think it's so hard for people in this business? What is it that keeps them out of the marketing business?
Well, I think people that you deal with a lot are in the bigger firms where there's a whole team. When you're out on your own, a solo, we call it the Han Solo practitioner. Out there on your own, it's, you just put so much energy and effort into the design and the billing and like what stuff we were talking about that you just don't have any time left over. And so getting those,
feast and famine, though, you'll get into that spiky, and you don't want that. You want to have. I always thought that if demand needs to exceed supply at all times, then you'll be picky about your clients and you won't give your time away, which of course will then make you better because you're working for people who value you, they're paying you well.
Well, also just technology is just like changing by the second, so what you think you've got figured out, in 20 minutes it's obsolete, so.
Well, I think a lot of people, my experience in this business is with a lot of design professionals, they just don't really believe in marketing. sort of, well, if we're good, people will beat a path to our door. And, you know, marketers, well, that's selling, and selling, people who sell are all liars. And I don't want to be a liar. I'm ethical.
Right.
So therefore I don't sell because I'm good. And it's an unfortunate sort of cycle that.
Well, in school we're just taught that, you know, that design is just going to sell itself. You know, if you do a great design, everybody's going to love it. So
Unfortunately, they don't all know that it was you, and other people get credit, the owner or the contractors, or people don't, or the architect in your case versus the landscape architect. And so you got to toot your horn a little bit.
Yeah, and everything you do is marketing.
It is.
So you got to be intentional and have some plans and some systems in place to those little touch points everywhere, you know, the little tagline on your email.
Touch points is one of my favorite topics.
Oh yeah?
I love that. I didn't even know about touch points until I started teaching my entrepreneurship class, and our textbook mentioned touch points, and I'm like, that's brilliant. You know, every single thing, every experience they have, your website, your signage, the way you look, the way you communicate, all of that is a touch point.
I know you're a car person.
Yeah, I am.
So I hear. But you know, the steering wheel, how does that feel in your hand? And
tactile.
And the gear shift.
Exactly.
How do those two things feel? That's so important.
It is.
So.
That's a touch point.
Yeah.
I mean, what can you say?
So.
But that's true, and so that is interesting that you realize that, and I don't think I don't think it takes specialized marketing degrees or anything to sort of get some of the basic concepts down. That you can build a brand, even as a one-man band.
Yep.
You can build a brand that gives you an image in the marketplace, makes the phone ring, and that allows you to get a better price, and maybe makes people listen to you more, which ultimately makes your design more successful. Because, of course, that's what I think design professionals, selling the job is one thing, but selling people on doing what they need to do, that's very important too, don't you think?
That's not easy.
It's not easy. A lot of times they do the wrong thing, or their instincts are bad.
Well, a lot of people don't want to do the things that they need to do. You know,
just because you're the expert doesn't mean that they'll do it. You know, you can say, look, I've done this for 20 years. You should do what I say.
But as you age, it's fun to see them kind of take you a little more seriously on that too. So that's kind of fun.
It's one of the benefits of aging. There are a few other ones, but not too many. I speak from experience. Well, thanks for coming by.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
Great talking with you.
Yeah, enjoyed it.
Well, anyway, John, it's great to have you here. Wanted to talk a little bit to you as a young professional that, hasn't been out of school too long. I don't know if you co-op while you were in school. Did you do that? Or?
Yeah, a little bit. I worked an internship while going through school.
Oh, did you? Who did you work for then?
A Unique Machine and Tool.
Okay, so it wasn't in this business specifically.
No, we designed wood-making machines.
Okay.
So it was more mechanical engineering.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Are you a mechanical engineer yourself?
I'm actually chemical.
Okay, chemical.
Yeah.
All right.
I just like everything, so.
Well, those are the highest paid. I mean, you've got to be the smartest.
I don't know about that one.
So what do you think, though, as a young person, go to work in a firm in this business, what do you think they need to do differently in terms of culture, just based on your experience and what you see talking with your friends or what you hear from them?
Yeah.
As a sort of newcomer to this business, what do you think they could do better to make a better environment?
I would probably say diversify. It seems like it's looking in the mirror with all your coworkers, everyone kind of looks like you. It'd be nice to branch out, bring more ethnic and culture into the workplace, because then it kind of spices things up, It brings a nice flair to it.
And the clients, they're not all the same.
Oh no,
That's
of course
not. That's always a good reason to have different kinds of people so they can relate to your clients.
Exactly.
And that always helps, I think. But it's definitely changing, but we're slow to change in this industry.
It is a little bit slow.
Yeah. So what else have you experienced that you think would be maybe create a better work environment? And I realize you probably like where you work, obviously. You
Yeah.
wouldn't be there otherwise. You have plenty of choices, so I know that.
I'd probably say like higher workloads probably for your new people. So as like a young person, sometimes I find like there's dead parts throughout the day where I'm not really doing a whole lot. I like to really stay busy, and like if a company can include you more, like take you out on the trips to job sites and stuff, like we may not be learning a lot or may not be interacting, but when we are learning a lot, but we're not be interacting.
Right. It is critical. I think people need to see the actual reality of what they're doing on paper in real life.
Right.
So important.
Oh yeah, and I love that about Olson is like we're kind of unique in that is like we send a lot of our engineers out, and I've been to a couple of our job sites, and it's awesome. Like, and I hear my friends, they're like they sit at a desk all day and they've never seen anything they've actually produced, and it's sad. Yeah, it's sad.
Really is. So you, in a sense, were sent out from Arizona to this location, and this is a company they just acquired.
Yes.
So that's kind of interesting too.
Yeah. Yeah, they used to be McGoodwin William Yates.
Yes. So what's it like there? Do you think that the people are happy after the firm? Are they glad that they're now part of Olson, would you say generally, or not?
I'd say it's probably like a 70-30 split.
Is it?
Like,
Okay.
you know, there's some of the older people who are like...
It's not like it used to be.
Yeah, not like it used to be. And then like there's a lot of people like, there's all these greater benefits. Now we have more offices, we can do more traveling and like experience new things.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, I hope that those ones that resist over time will see that it's better being part of something bigger and,
Oh, I'm sure.
a company that's really committed to growing versus one that's sort of static, which they were. I mean, they were sort of static for a long time.
Yeah, I kind of heard that before I came. I came like 6 months after the Olson transition, so.
Well, it's great for them that they can get smart young people like you.
Oh, yeah.
So it's got to help. It helps the energy level and brings everybody up to a sort of a new standard, I think. You know more about the latest technologies and tools in the trade.
Right. We catch on to those a lot easier, too.
Yeah. A lot of us old farts, we're just slow to adapt to new stuff.
Hey, you got to have a good balance of both, though, right?
That's true. Yep. There's some things we can do well.
Oh, absolutely.
Not too many, but some. Well, John, thanks for coming out tonight.
Awesome.
Really appreciate it.
It was great to meet you.
Same here.
Thank you.
So, Erin, how long have you been at Olson? Were you at McGoodwin Yates before? Or?
I was. I started at McGoodwin Williams and Yates about 6 months before the takeover, so I've been there just over a year now.
Cool. Yeah. So, how's it been so far?
It's good. It's a bit of an adjustment. Grad school was a little bit crazy, and so.
So, is that what you came directly from grad school to the firm?
Yeah, I was at the U of A for 8 years, finishing up my doctorate, and then I started there. And
good for you. So
it's a bit different.
Do you plan on staying in consulting, or do you want to be a professor someday?
No, I plan on staying in consulting. I don't fancy myself applying for grants and wrangling grad students. It doesn't sound my speed very much.
So what was your specialty? What is your dissertation?
In short terms, drinking water treatment.
Okay.
Longer terms, using carbon nanotubes to remove organics from water.
I see. Well, that's important stuff. I mean, obviously, clean water is probably the biggest problem that we have.
All over the world, yeah. Though nanotechnology is not really going to apply to third world countries and such.
So, as a young woman, obviously, in a field that's dominated by men, what's it like for you? How does it work out? Do you think there's still sexism in the workplace, or is that something that has pretty much finally been put to bed by hopefully education and training?
It depends. A lot of basically everybody under the age of 50 is totally fine, and it's like it doesn't even matter, at least the ones I work with. Okay. Sometimes outside consultants or contractors or people that work for manufacturing companies and stuff like that, they'll ignore me or talk around me or things like that, but it's nothing big. And then some of the older people seem more prone to sexism in general, but none of it's, I don't know, harsh. They don't mean anything bad by it. They just don't realize that times have changed, it seems like. And for the most part, people don't.
It's so programmed into their culture that they can't get away from it.
Exactly. They don't realize that they might be doing something that makes me uncomfortable, and they don't do it on purpose. So that's nice. And then if anybody that's not at our company says something or that's inappropriate or sexist, usually the people that I work with will say something before I even have the chance to. So that's nice, and they seem to respect me. So
I mean, I think our business is probably as good as any in terms of at least we have smarter people, who are more progressive, I would think, than a lot of other industries. I've been exposed to this industry, of course, for the bulk of my career, 38 years. But I also have a general contracting and development company, and I can tell you over there, it is bad.
things are changing. Yeah, I mean, it seems like some types of engineering change faster than others. But there are more women, at least in college, that were in civil engineering and industrial, chemical, than, say, mechanical and electrical, things like that, And every company's different. Mine seems fine, but I know other people that have issues. It just depends. And there's one step to get to respecting people in the workplace, and another to get to, family benefits and things like that, medical leave. So I feel like sometimes engineering is more slow to change in some of those areas than other more progressive industries. But in the workplace, on day to day, that's not that bad.
So what advice would you have to somebody who's the CEO of one of these companies today?
About sexism or in general?
No, in general, about how to make a better work environment that would...
It seems like the biggest thing you could do is talk to people my age. I have really strong opinions on what would make a work environment better, what I would like, what my values are, but they never ask. They never know. They know what people their age value. They don't know what people my age value. They don't know how times change and how expectations change. If they never ask, they can't make any changes that benefit the company as a whole or that move them forward. They get stuck.
So what do you think like some of those disconnects are? I mean, are there any specific things that you would offer up that would be more, that need to change to make a better work environment for a young person?
One of the differences I've seen between older and younger generations is a focus on what matters as far as getting work done. Sure. Some of the older generations think it's the time in your seat that matters. How much time are you here? Do you get here before the boss and stay later?
Yes.
Whereas it seems like people my age care more about your work product. Exactly. Yeah. What did you accomplish? Right. Did you get it done in an efficient manner, or are you taking too long and charging the client too much in hours for what you're doing? It's not so much about how long it takes, but actually the quality and quantity of your work produced. And that seems to make more sense to me, but I realize that it's more of a cultural difference, and their way makes sense to them too.
Well, part of it may be just the way companies get paid for their services. If I can bill out every hour of your time on an hourly job, then maybe I don't care what you get done. I just care that you put hours down on your timesheet.
I worry about the ethics of that too, right?
Yeah, that's not good. That's not going to get them, as you say. I mean, it's unethical. You're not delivering what you should do.
Yeah, I try and slow down and not rush too much, but at the same time I feel weird doing that because it doesn't take me as long to do it. Why should you drag it out and then charge the client more?
Yes.
I don't know.
I do think
it's a fine line to walk.
The thing that sort of pulls at this issue of what you get done versus the hours that you put in. But it is unfortunate, and it's true that people of my generation they judge people based on their face time.
Yeah. Well, it seems like that came back to how you progress in a company too. Back in the old days, it was you start as a janitor, work your way up, now you run the company, but it doesn't work that way anymore. And I honestly think it's kind of a good opportunity too, because then the only thing that matters is not how long you've been with the company and your tenure. It also matters what you can accomplish, what your talents are, and how skilled you are, so you don't have to wait till you're a certain age or you've been there a certain amount of time to move up. Right. If you're talented, you can move up faster, and they reward merit.
I do think a lot of companies in this business, and I think it's unfortunate, but if you look at like what age people get to become owners, you see it's in their 40s by and large. It's too long. Because by the time somebody gets done paying for that ownership investment, it'll practically be time to start selling it.
Yeah.
And I do think that's unfortunate. I think a lot of was young, I got to become an owner in the firm I worked in when I was 25 or 26. And it was a rare opportunity. They needed the money. They weren't doing very well. And so I was lucky. And it sort of got me on a different track, I think. And it's, people like yourself, I think I think companies would be smart to try to provide those opportunities early.
Yeah, as long as you balance it, because I know a lot of people that are older worry that if the only thing that matters is merit, then they'll find somebody that's just as good at the job who's younger, and then they'll be forced out or something like that, and they worry about job security. So that's always there's never a perfect solution to anything.
I mean, there's as hard as it is to find people, and as much demand as there is, if you're good at any age, we should be able to employ you, don't you think? I mean, really.
Theoretically. I mean, now that the recession's over, at least.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, I think the future looks very bright in the field. I mean, the demand is going to go insane, and the supply is going to be not
People
growing.
always need clean water, and they always need roads and bridges and
They do. It's a huge
buildings.
problem.
Yeah.
Quality of life.
It's one of the reasons I went into civil engineering.
Meaningful stuff.
Everybody needs it.
They do.
Anywhere in the world.
It's nice to be needed.
Yeah, it's nice to have that job security too. You can get a job pretty much anywhere.
Well, thank you, Aaron.
Yeah,
Really
it's
appreciate it.
nice to meet you.
Same here.
Sure. Are you originally from here?
I'm originally from St. Louis.
Okay, so yeah, you're from the Ozarks, right?
Yeah.
And so look, we've got a dog, and that's just had a recent. So how many people you got working for you right now?
I basically I have just a team of.
Doing it? Okay.
I have just a team of a few guys that I use for like demo and like pick up pieces in between. But other than that, I use a stable of subcontractors.
Oh, you use a stable of subcontractors. Okay, right. Well, let's jump off there. So you use a stable of subcontractors. What's your relationship with engineers when you're building homes and I presume subdivisions as well?
I don't have real close relationship with engineers because I don't really even need them. I'm mostly in residential construction. Most of the time we don't even require an engineer unless there's something unusual.
Right.
But I do have a couple that I use when I need to. Like recently we did a garage where they wanted us to build a room under the garage.
Oh, okay.
It's built into the hill out here on the lake. And so we had to have an engineer come and give us, the layout for how we had to structure that concrete and all that stuff.
So what do you look for in an engineer? I mean, why do you call that person back? Why do you stick with the couple? What do they show you that no one else does?
That's a good question. I would say that 90% of what my decision is based on is the comfortability of the relationship. As long as the person is good at their job and you can tell that they know what they're doing and they're confident and they've been around for a while. It's all about relationship to me.
Right, so not transactional, very much the relationship. And so that's here, what were some of the big issues that you faced when you were out in California and you're out in Texas, in Dallas, a very big, fast-moving market? What are some of the things that you didn't like that you found?
Government jobs.
Okay.
We found a niche in Dallas. We did a lot of work out at the Dallas-Fort Worth Airport, and I worked for the largest contractor in the state of Texas. It was H.B. Zachary. They built the I-35 highway.
Oh, yeah.
They did most of the concrete work and stuff out at the Dallas-Fort Worth Airport. And I got hired to do the Scottish Rite Cathedral in San Antonio, Texas.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a historical building, and we had to cover the whole thing with a custom colored Hypalon membrane that I had done by Dunlop Rubber out of Canada.
Oh, wow, okay.
The thing was that it had to look exactly like it did before we started when we were finished.
Oh, yeah.
So we had to put a membrane that was color approved and all that. And That I like. The things about, we got into the government jobs, we found a niche, because we weren't a large contractor, and we found a niche where if you did a project for, I think it was anything under $30,000. So this would be a project where we go put a single ply membrane roof on a building in the private sector for, you know, maybe $15,000.
Right.
And in the government sector, we bid it for $29,999.99.
Right.
Okay, and that way the guys that were paying so much for bonding had multi-million-dollar bonding. They didn't even want to look at it,
right.
And we didn't have to have the bonding for that size of a job. So we found this niche, and we just started bidding those things every day of the week because it was worth an extra $10,000, right?
Oh, right.
But government jobs, you have an inch-thick folder of paperwork on every single job, and they send an inspector out to watch you every hour of the day, and the inspector's some guy that's never been on a single-ply roof in his life. You know, he knows nothing. So there's a lot of that stuff.
Well, let me ask you a question. What's the biggest company that you've been associated with, either as a sub or they were your sub? 'Cause I want to talk about company culture and how it affects how a company is perceived and how they treat you. And I'm wondering if you've ever worked for, with, or competed against a company that had a bad culture.
Well, I've worked for a company that I think had a kind of a bad culture.
Why was their culture bad?
Because the CEO surrounded himself with a CFO and a COO and a group of yes men.
Oh,
okay.
Yes men. Okay, right.
And they really weren't acting out of integrity and honesty and an open, transparent communication on their projects. And there was a lot of stuff going on that was just wrong.
Right.
And I got hired for 2 years to do a startup in a renewable energy technology.
Oh, okay.
This was a corporation out of Virginia. And they paid me well. I traveled a lot. I didn't really like that. I mean, I didn't like 15-hour flights to China and back and that kind of stuff. But it was fascinating doing the technology because we were doing a technology that would convert old tires, plastic, and coal into usable fuels like ultra-low sulfur diesel and some stuff like that.
Right. So this sounds like a smart company. It sounds like a technologically advanced company.
Yeah.
But there's a bunch of sycophants and yes men.
Yeah, there was. And that culture I found very, one that I didn't want to stay associated with. It wasn't honest.
Right. And you look like an honest guy.
I am honest.
If you're talking to me,
I sleep well at night. It's true.
Well, good. Well, that's the main thing I wanted you to talk about was some company culture. That was a goldmine of a statement,
Yeah.
But you saw that.
I did.
On the high seas, so to speak.
And those kind of companies, corporations, they'll have you do all these tests, BSA tests, or employee, where they have a guy come down and you go through a whole series of questions, and then they assess you and what kind of person you are. And my assessment came up that I was the type of person who would be the CEO of a company, and I was very independent thinker. Well, that scared the hell out of them. They didn't want to hear that.
Right. Yeah. Cool. Well, good. Well, Al, that's what I wanted, man. Yeah. All right, we hope you enjoyed that video and that you're more enlightened now than you were when you turned it on. Before I go any further, I'd like to give a special thanks to Core Brewery in Springdale, Arkansas for allowing us to film on their premises and for the engineers to have the great handcrafted beers that Core is known for. Our goal is to bring people together to have people talk and figure out what's really going on at the ground level inside the firm. How do we all get along? How do we create better teams? How do we create better firms? We look forward to having events in different locations across the United States. and sharing the information that you help us create. We all want to get down to the same idea, which is educating you, the AEC industry. Thank you.